Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/entitled people, where in today's episode, a Karen disrespects a military veteran, and she gets taught a lesson. Guys, the stories today are super ridiculous, so again, get ready to shake your heads. Hit subscribe if you haven't, and the email link is going to be in the description below if you want to submit your stories. So the first story is a submission by Margo. Margo says, "Hello Darkfluff crew, I thought you might want to hear about my neighbors who don't seem to have a sense of personal space. So, newly married 5 years ago, my husband and I moved into a 2-unit rented townhome, with a spacious backyard for us and the other renters in the unit on the other side of the house. The problem with the backyard is the dividing fence between the 2 units had been torn down to maximize space, as the previous tenants were good friends with our new shared wall neighbors. Now, I'm shy and timid. I like my personal space, and I've lived in the woods with not another soul in sight for all of my childhood. So this was a culture shock to me, to just have people coming in and out of my backyard. So my husband and I told them that we didn't want to do the whole shared yard thing. They had a ton of stuff. Old cars, pools, an old cat box full of turds, several charcoal grills, igloo coolers, and so on. And the stuff was beginning to spill onto our side. A few months go by, and we were amiable to our neighbors, and I don't have any real complaints until one spring day, I go into my yard and their very heavy gas grill is in my yard, the furthest end away from theirs. So I tell my husband, and he doesn't care, and I'm a bit mousy, so I let it go. It wasn't that big of a deal, if it meant good relationships with the people you live by. A few months pass, and I want to go outside. It's a nice day, and who do I see planting a whole garden in my yard but my neighbor? He's got peppers, tomatoes, and goodness knows what else already planted. He doesn't notice me see him, as he's very involved in his garden, and I sink back into the house and begin to cry. Now, I know that's a bit of an overreaction, but I didn't feel like my space was a place I could go to be safe and alone. And being shy and very introverted, that was very important to me. My husband gets home, and I ask him to talk to the neighbors for me, as my husband does conflict resolution for a living. He then comes back and says, they said you don't use it anyway, so they wanted a salsa garden, and to use the wasted space. I was of course furious, but we agreed to let them keep their garden, as it was a lovely garden after all, if they promised to respect our side of the yard and keep everything else out going forward. Time goes on, and the neighbors have an awesome garden, but throughout the year and their numerous parties, trash and yard debris builds up on our side, as they use it to dump bottles and lawn clippings from their mower. They then harvest everything, and that's the end of the garden, right? Nope. They planted an even bigger garden behind a tree stump on my side. You can see it from the back door. You had to walk out and go around to see it. I found it after I came home from work, and I might not have reacted the best way, but I was furious. I began pulling out the plants and throwing them back on their side. My husband gets home before the neighbors do, and I fill him in and tell him that I dug up their plants. He's understandably perturbed at the neighbors and a little at me, which is fair. They return home, see their garden, and put 2 and 2 together and demand we reimburse them for the ruined plants. We then come to the agreement that we won't complain to the landlord, and they better stay the heck out and we'll forget this happened. They pretty much stayed out after that, but that might be because my husband built a fence and they can't get in. They've been entitled and weird about a few other things like, can I slaughter my chickens in your yard? I don't want to get my lawn all dirty. Or sometimes, they would let their niece outside while I'm out with my little girls, and they would use me as a free babysitter, despite me telling the woman that I'm not comfortable with that. I was pregnant, causing a condition in my hips that made it very painful to walk, let alone run after a 5-year-old if she decided to book it. Now, this is still going on after 5 years. The garbage, the beer bottles, the lawn clippings, but hey, they're not drug dealers that threaten us in the night, which is more than I can say about the last neighbors we had. I would have been driven crazy by those neighbors. I don't think I'd be able to live in a place where it's a shared backyard, especially with people who just leave garbage everywhere. I don't know how you guys dealt with that, Margo, but hey, thank you so much for the story submission. Entitled neighbors are my favorite stories, by the way. So, a quick thing that happened to me. No, nobody was physically assaulted. No, the police weren't called. No, I'm not disabled. Sorry in advance for my lack of imagination. And yes, this story actually happened. So I was at the airport Starbucks line, and this particular place in the airport always has a long wait time due to heavy traffic. They get through the line fairly quickly, but when it comes to actually making the coffee, you have to wait like 30 minutes. Anyways, I've been waiting for my caramel frappuccino, when a woman gets in line and she asks for a caramel frap. The woman says she needs it quickly though, because she has a flight to catch. The Starbucks barista says, sorry, they're really busy today. If she wants something fast, she can pour her a coffee. The woman then says she needs a caramel frap and she needs it now, complaining that she's a tired mom that needs to handle her 2 kids while traveling. The barista doesn't care. The barista says that she can get a caramel frap ready for her, but she'll have to wait like everybody else. She loudly sighs, but she's willing to wait. Now I'm just eavesdropping because I've been waiting forever and this is getting entertaining. So my caramel frap is ready. It has my damn name on it. They literally call my name Caramel Frappuccino for Kevin. Not my real name. And Karen says, oh, great, that was quick. She then goes to grab the drink. I say to her, I'm sorry, but this is mine. I then take it before she can grab it. At this, Karen frowns and says, no, it's not. It's mine. I just ordered it. I told her, and I've been waiting 30 minutes, and it has my name on it. Karen says, well, I have a flight to catch, and I have 2 rowdy boys I need to take care of. You can wait. The woman then reaches to snatch it out of my hand, but I lick the lid all over before she can reach it. She then gives me a really disgusted look saying, really? Really? You needed to do that? What is wrong with you? You young people are so selfish. Now, she says this a little loud, looking around at all the other people waiting like she expected other people to be on her side. Everybody ignores her, pretending not to witness what's going on. I then take my drink and start getting my utensils, and the woman gives up on me. Then another caramel frappuccino's ready, and she tries the nonsense again. The owner of the other frappuccino says, lady, are you gonna try this with everybody's drink? Now the crowd starts ganging up on her. I think they realized that she was gonna keep doing this, and a bunch of people start yelling, just wait. We've all been waiting, it's not that hard. What makes you think you're so special? The Karen realizes that no one's on her side. She retreats to her table where her family's sitting, clearly embarrassed. I love how this entitled woman said she's more important than OP because she has a flight to catch. Like, I'm pretty sure you're not the only one with a flight to catch with rowdy, tired kids at an airport, Karen. So I was out to lunch with my 5-month-old son, and he needed to be changed. So I went to the restroom, but found that the men's didn't have a changing table. So I went to the women's. I walked in, and there were some hushed whispers from a couple of women, but everybody else just went about their business. I was sorting through the diaper bag, getting everything I needed ready to go, when a restaurant hostess approaches me and says, oh, sorry sir, the men's is actually at the other end. I explained that there was no change tables over there, and she said, nevertheless, this is the women's room, and your presence is making some of our patrons uncomfortable. Now at that, I was kind of flummoxed, and I said, I'm fully clothed, I'm not peeking under stalls, I just want to change my son and finish my meal. The hostess began to get upset. She said, I understand, but how about your wife comes in and changes him? I then told her that we were there alone. Now, we were starting to attract the attention in the restroom at this point, and one of the women said, I've been there with 4 of my own, I can change him. The hostess seemed to think that that was a suitable compromise, but I wasn't comfortable leaving my baby alone with a total stranger to change him. I said this, and another woman, who I think is one of the ones who complained, said, then go home and change him, or lay your change pad on the counter surface in the men's room. A woman then added that I shouldn't have felt entitled to violate their space this way. She said I was making people uncomfortable and that I need to respect that. Now, this was the first quiet meal I've had since he was born, so I just ignored her and started to change him. The hostess then gets a manager, a man, who called from the door that I needed to leave. Now, I wasn't about to drive my baby home in a soiled diaper though, so I finished up. So was I wrong here? Okay, so this post has a lot of mixed reactions. Some people say that OP was definitely in the wrong, he was super entitled, that it's also super creepy that he totally overstepped his boundaries by going into the women's bathroom. On the other hand, a lot of women do come to his defense to say that he meant no harm. Clearly he was in there to change his baby's diaper, and he wasn't in there to be creepy at all, so he should have been allowed to change the diaper of his child. Now, I do think that both the men's and women's bathrooms should have had change tables in it, as it would have prevented the whole thing from happening in the first place. So, what do you guys think? Was OP the entitled one for not caring about women's privacy? Or do you think that him coming into the women's bathroom to change his child was not as bad as everybody made it out to be? So, for some background, I used to work at a summer camp as a counselor, and as the director of the archery range. One of the things that campers had the opportunity to do was sign up for merit badges, including one for the archery program. The requirements were to pass a short written exam and to show that their shooting skills had improved. Because it was summer, and because some kids struggled with tests, I would offer to provide any assistance they might want. I was willing to do anything, short of giving them the answers or doing the test for them. The only caveat to this was if they refused my help, I would leave them to their own devices because there was other kids who did want it. During one session, a 14-year-old boy who we'll call Colby signed up for the badge. By the end of the first archery period, I could tell he was going to have some trouble with the exam. I made an offer to help him, and he turned me down. So fast forward to the end of the week. The exam is administered, and he bombs it. So of course, he doesn't get the badge. After the closing ceremony, he comes up to me demanding to know why I didn't pass him anyways and give him a badge. I explained he didn't pass half the requirements. After trying to argue with me, he stomps off. About 10 minutes later, he comes back with his mom in tow. Now, this woman was a clear Karen, and she's fuming. She asked me the same questions, and I give her the same answer. She then goes into a tirade about how her son's a golden child, blah blah blah, and he deserves to have a badge. As she's doing this, Colby's standing behind her wearing a smug look, while I'm trying to decide if I'm actually hearing this, and trying not to laugh in the woman's face. When she finishes, I tell her it's fine if she believes all this, but I'm still not gonna give him a badge because it wouldn't be fair to the other kids. Seeing their expressions changed was priceless. She then tells me that she's gonna go talk to my boss about it and she's gonna try to get me reprimanded. I tell her that if she feels that's necessary, then fine, but I'm pretty sure they're gonna agree with me. So a short while later, I see both of them come speed walking out of my boss's office with anger written all over them. I go into the office. My boss spots me, smiles, and gives me a thumbs up. Good on OP's boss for not giving in to that woman's demands. Guys, I am cringing at the fact that a 14-year-old went to go call his mom. At that age, I was so embarrassed to get my mom involved in anything that had to do with me. Man, if that kid doesn't get rid of his I do minimal work and still expect to win attitude, real life is gonna slap him silly one day. And it doesn't help that mom comes to his rescue. Could you guys imagine what would have happened if OP's boss didn't stand his ground against the two, and the woman got what she wanted? So I'm a US Navy veteran, and my occupational specialty was corpsman. For some background, a corpsman usually serves as a medical building / hospital or sickbay support staff, depending on if assigned to a base or ship. A few of us get called up to serve as field medics for Marines. I was one of these, and I had served in Afghanistan and Iraq, attached to various Ricky recon units. Despite the best efforts to ensure our safety, I had lost my lower right leg during a training accident in 2010. This happened after my recovery and medical discharge was completed, and I was on a Greyhound on my way back home. So on my way home, leaving the Greyhound station, I'm wearing my combat boots, jean shorts, my old unit shirt, my dog tags, and my Marines Desert BDU hat. Now, I first see her when I'm boarding the bus first, and she's giving me the stink eye. Greyhound was so nice to help me, and I was still using a crutch to help balance. I take a seat at the back of the bus, and the staff tells me to stretch out if I want to. There was only going to be the entitled mom's family and another couple, so there'd be plenty of room. When I see her boarding, I can see the woman declaring as loudly as she could that her dad would only be a moment, that he's a veteran that got messed up by Agent Orange in Vietnam, and it takes him a little longer in the bathroom. Earlier, I had talked to the guy in the smoking area. He was a vet, and we had compared tattoos, and we had talked about how he, his unwed daughter, and the two brats were going to be in the same city I was to visit his sister. Now I, wanting to help a fellow vet, decided to speak up and confirm that it was true. That was mistake number one. When she sees me there in the 3-seater back row, next to the travel toilet, she storms up and demands that I give up the seat to her and her kids, since her father was a disabled veteran. I point back to the rest of the empty bus and smile and say, "Ma'am, I'm a newly discharged, disabled," and that was as far as I got. The Karen rudely interrupts me saying, No, you're not. You are just some cripple. This service doesn't let cripples in. Take off all that and quit pretending. At that point, I pull out my DD-214 and point to where it says that I lost my lower leg in a training accident. As the bus driver reaches us to pull her aside and tell her to get off the bus, I motion for his attention. I ask that she just get stuck up front with her kids because, look out for the old man. And that was mistake number 2. So after he's boarded, he's told what happened and he cusses her out, before going back to apologize to me, offering me a swig from his little flask. Eventually I fall asleep. I'm awoken to a pain that felt like someone had hooked my prosthetics pin to a car and was speeding off. I jerk myself awake and there's her kids, both pulling on my leg and trying to get it off me. I pop up screaming, "Hey, "Get off my leg." Now hearing that, the woman gets up on her feet. She says, "How dare you scream at my kids." At this, the bus driver was pulling over while I was trying to get their hands off my leg. I then say to her, "Then be a parent and make them get their grubby mitts off my leg before I throw you off the bus." The Karen says, "They're curious. Let them play with it. Besides, you're just a lousy fake vet cripple." At this point, she's shut up by her dad, who's removed his belt while coming up the aisle, starting to take the belt to her. He literally pulls her over his knee and starts spanking her, saying, "You kids will be next if you don't leave his leg alone." The kids make a beeline to the front at this point. When the cops get there, he even filled out a witness statement as to what happened, and he helped me get her arrested. The rest of the trip, the kids were well behaved, and the woman's dad made it up to me with a lot more drinks the rest of the way. No clue what happened to mom, but I heard the state of Maryland picked up the charges against her. Guys, I've read way too many stories about parents letting their kids pull at or taking other people's prosthetics, and it's so insane. Like, how the heck did she think it was okay to yell at OP for defending himself against her little goblins? And seriously, I can't believe her dad gave her the belt in public, and to add insult to injury, even helped OP get her arrested. Like, that's friggin' wild. So this story happened around 10 or 11 years ago, so I don't recall every word that was said throughout the event, but here goes. Also, it's a long story, so prepare some popcorn. So my grandparents had recently purchased a new vacation house, which me, my friend, my mother, and her friend got to stay in over the weekend. Our house had a few close neighbors, all retired couples. There was a huge field that divided our neighborhood from another couple of houses. This is important for later. Me and my friend were playing around near the pond that we had in our garden, while my mother and her friend were preparing a snack since we had planned that we were going to the beach later. All of a sudden, a man stomps onto the veranda that my mother and her friend are on, and I barely have time to notice him before my attention's grabbed by two young kids who had crept up behind me and my friend. They had gotten into a fight, and the younger kid was crying her eyes out. They were siblings. I was so choked that I just froze, and so did my friend. A minute or so later, the man who had spoken to my mother just left, but his kid stayed behind. My mother had a mortified look on her face, and I couldn't grasp the situation. So what had happened was that a man who wasn't close as a neighbor to our resident had told my mother that he would leave his kids with us for some time since he wanted to text his wife in peace and quiet. The guy didn't disclose where he lived, what his name was, or any contact information. He left so quickly that my mom didn't react in time, and there we were, with two kids who we didn't know in our care for an undisclosed amount of time. The kids hated it, and I couldn't really like them any less. They ran around the yard, tried to run away, slapped us when we tried to intervene, and almost fell into the pond. They were a nightmare. We had to cancel our plans to go to the beach since we weren't comfortable bringing strangers with us. One of the kids finally told us where they lived after countless hours of hell on Earth. To get to their home, we had to cross that huge field, and the younger kid wasn't having any of it. We had to drag her across the entire field. What would take about 10 minutes to cross now took a good 30 to 45 minutes. You had to cross a ditch to get to their house, and their dad was outside. The dad became so pissed when he saw us. We were supposed to babysit for him, and how dare we invade his alone time. The day after, we saw him approaching us once again, and we just ran into our house. We then locked the doors, turned off the lights, laid on the floor so he couldn't see us. He tried to peek in our windows, knocked on the door, etc., etc. It's just so creepy that a dad is so entitled that he thinks strangers must give up their plans in order to take care of his children, and that he became angry when we came back with his kids hours later. Honestly, I don't know, guys. I would have called the police when he dropped the kids off. Like, if some random man just comes to your house, leaves his kids at your front door, that's the only thing you should do. You don't march them back to their home. Like, what a weird story. Was the dad looking for someone to babysit his kids? And would he have even come back for them if they were gone too long? And what is this thing about him wanting to text his wife in peace and quiet? There's so many questions. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our / entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the stories today. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you missed yesterday's episode on the channel, an entitled Karen goes bonkers. She attacks OP thinking he's an employee. If you guys missed it, go check it out. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.